Hello and welcome to That Peter Crouch podcast with me, Peter Crouch, Chris Stark and Statman Dave with me as usual. You all right, boys?
Good. Dave, you good?
Yeah, excellent. Have you been up to anything, Chris?
Yeah. All right, we'll talk about it.
You're right. So he's been chatting a little bit off air about flight paths. Please enlighten us instantly.
I actually thought you might be interested in this.
I'm interested.
Because you've got a bit of free time now. And I like to imagine that when you're on the golf course, as a plane goes over, you might be interested in where it's going, where it's come from, kind of thing.
Can you just explain to us what you do now?
So I've downloaded and now paid for a premium version of a flight tracking app, Crouchy. It's the nuts. There's almost a sport in it for me. Like, you hear a plane come in. Did you know the technology exists that you can hold your phone up at the plane and then see where it's come from, where it's going to on any plane?
That is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you.
And from a stats point of view, it's extraordinary, Dave. It's like all the information of every plane.
So what we got? Speed, height?
It's everything. I've become, without really realising, a full-on plane spotter. And it's such a joy.
So you can see where it's taken off, where it's going, where it's about to land.
See, I know you, and I know you're thinking, I know you're sort of taking a piss in your brain, right? But there'll be other people listening to this that use these apps. I then got really into the planes. I thought, I wonder if there's one for boats. There's Ship Finder as well. But that's besides the point. The app shows you every plane in the UK. Click on it. Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm flabbergasted, Chris.
I was hoping it'd be met with a bit of enthusiasm where you'd go oh, that sounds great. So you asked what have I been up to? Lastly,
I was not expecting that.
Chris, are you making a play to maybe track Elon Musk's plane? Because apparently there was a kid doing that got offered $50,000 to stop doing it.
What, to stop tracking
Elon Musk's private jet and
really?
A Twitter account, yeah.
Oh, really?
So there's some money in this, Chris.
Oh, I didn't know that. No, I just think it's interesting, and I've got into it now in quite a big way. And I thought if where's one place I can share a passion, and it's on this podcast, and maybe it's just me.
No, Chris. Do you know what? I mocked you at the start there, and I just wasn't expecting it, but actually, I feel like you've convinced me to have a look at that.
Let me know if anyone else is doing this as well. Let us know if it's
back stronger, everyone.
Yeah. Anyway, today is the second half of your Ultimate 11. Do you want to explain the story so far if people are just joining us on this podcast now?
So, yeah, I mean, the premise is I've picked a squad of players that I feel would be the best squad that I've played with for all manner of reasons, not just ability, but like character, personality, friends, that I've played with. And we've only just got through the sort of defenders, really, and goalkeepers. I have got 3 substitute goalkeepers. It's not a conventional squad, but I think I've explained that pretty well.
Looking forward to seeing who's in your midfield, Crouchy, who's in the squad up front as well. There's going to be some good players up there.
There certainly will be, Dave.
We need to discuss where we're up to with Crouchfest as well. Obviously, there was an announcement in the last podcast. People seem to be massively happy that we're going to do Crouchfest 2. It's going to be bigger than ever. We've only done it once before, and now we're at Wembley Arena. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, there's been a real buzz about it, Chris, which is I'm obviously pleased about.
Yeah, we should say thank you so much to everyone that's been getting the word out there, and it's going to be so good. Look at the demand that has been since we announced this thing, and we're really excited. It's a hell of a lot of admin for us in the background, but hopefully it'll be really worth it on the day. We've got to sort the lineup as well. I know we've been having private discussions about people that we want to be there, whether we should say about who's coming and who isn't coming, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I've had a few people because now it's a thing, I've had people reaching out to me potentially to come on, and I'm turning people away.
So look, there's a lot of secrets and there's a lot being planned, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Quick reminder, you can get your tickets for Crouchfest by heading to gigsandtours.com or Ticketmaster. Tickets are available now, so tell anyone you know who hasn't already heard that Crouchfest is coming to Wembley on the 19th of November. Thing is, though, by the time you hear this podcast, I don't exactly know what the ticket situation's going to be, but give it a go. You'll find a way. Link in the episode description for the tickets too.
So, Dave, you're in charge of stats. Who have I picked so far?
So far, Crouchy, we've got David James in goal. We've also got 3 sub-goalkeepers, mainly for morale. With the right backs are Glenn Johnson, who we don't know whether you're friends at the moment. We'll find that out on Crouchfest. Steve Finnan. Centre-backs, Jamie Carragher, Ledley King, and of course, Jonathan Woodgate. Crouchy, you apologised to Woodgate on the last podcast. Captain Brick Eyes? Brick Wall Eyes? How did we describe that?
That's Herman Horizon, just a genuinely aggressive man who I love dearly.
Right, Crouchy, let's look at the midfielders. Who are you going with first?
I've gone with Sean Derry here, Dave. Obviously, a bit of a friend of the pod. I've mentioned him before. I think you can see sort of how fondly I speak of him. He's gone on to be a coach under Patrick Vieira at Palace now. He's been a manager in his own right. And I saw that at a really young age. I moved from QPR, my first professional season, to move to Portsmouth. And you don't know who you meet, I just happened to live quite near Sean Derry and Courtney Pitt, and sort of us, we used to call ourselves the Three Musketeers, believe it or not. And very, very shitty analogy, but that's what we were. And Des looked after me. He was a little bit older than me, probably 3 or 4 years older, a captain in the making, but like also very fun. And I've never known in all my years of football, really, someone be so different from the Des that I knew to the Sean Derry at the training ground. And I love that about him. Like, he literally was so much fun. He used to have a laugh, he used to have a beer. As soon as he walked through the gates at the training ground, he was like a different man.
Was that the kind of thing where sometimes, did you ever get it wrong? Like, you'd piss around with him and he'd shut you down a little bit?
Exactly right. So I'm still a 19-year-old player. I think he was 23, 24. He'd been around a bit. He'd been at Sheffield United, played for Notts County, and I was myself constantly. I'd have a laugh and a joke, but then I'd have a laugh and a joke playing. I was obviously very serious when I played football, but he knew when to shut me down. Like, I would go like this and he'd go like, no. And he sort of was my mentor in some ways at that young age. Like, I was doing really well. Like, I couldn't stop scoring for Portsmouth that year. And it was just all great for me and I was enjoying it. And he sort of like made me see right from wrong. There's a time to have fun and a time to be, get your professional head on. And he was a big help to me. And this is the first time I moved away from home. And I lived like a student. It was ridiculous, really. Like, we're earning good money. And I basically lived like my mates who had no money at home. Because that's all I knew, Was
that the inflatable furniture?
I had inflatable furniture, yeah. Like, people couldn't believe it. They come around my house and go, like, you're playing, professional football. I'll be honest with you. I think I was on about $8,000 a week. I had no furniture.
So much money, isn't it?
I had no shit.
How old were you at that point?
19.
You could have bought the whole of IKEA.
Yeah, but at 19, you don't give a shit about
I literally had no clue what I was doing. I was there. I had no sheets on my bed. I had no furniture for like months. I had blow up furniture. I was sitting on a.
It's the idea that inflatable furniture would be easier than just getting.
Well, I just got it for like my mum said. "Oh, would you put this in, and then we'll order you a like a sofa and all that." And I just never really got round to it. I was like, "This is fine." You walk in, and it's just walls, blow up furniture, a kitchen. No, thankfully my mum got me some plates and stuff, and 2 beds in it. I swear to you, I don't think there was one picture on the wall.
But did a football club not? Because that could be quite dangerous, right? From a football club's point of view, they're looking at you're an asset. So don't they need you to be healthy and like inflatable furniture and kind of this lifestyle?
I think it's a lot different now. I don't think you'd be left to your own devices potentially now. I was a child in a man's world earning men's money, and I had no clue what I was doing.
Do you ever have a suggestion of getting like a private chef or a personal chef?
I didn't even think that, because you know what, Dave? Like, I definitely, that's such a valid point, because I've got that money to spend that on. But like, I just speak to my mates every day, and I said, like, what are you doing? And they'd be like, oh, I just didn't have any comprehension that you could do that. I'm not from that. I'm not from people who had personal chefs or, I'm not, someone gave you this load of money, but I didn't have I couldn't comprehend.
You were just happy. You were happy.
Yeah, I was just going like, oh my God, that's fine. Building up greatly. I didn't think to spend any of it on something that would make my life easier or better. There's actually a story to be told about this. It's like, I look at Jack Grealish, for instance, now, right? He gets a lot of stick for being a normal lad for his age. Like, so, he might, he's going out and he's having a good time, or he's just, because he's got mates that he's probably grown up with, the same as I did. And I just do, what are your mates doing? I want to do that. That's your only, you don't realise that you're in a different space now, like, and your career is something bigger now. You don't realise you're just a kid in a mad world of football, getting paid this amount of money, and you have to behave a different way. But like, the actual facts of the matter is, you just want to be like your mates.
Totally. And also, is there not something to be said? I often think this. I saw it, especially when the England team, I think they went wherever they went after the last tournament, and I saw videos being shared, and I thought, do you know what? Like, this is great. Like, surely you want 19, 20, 21-year-old players to be relaxed enough to be 19, 20, 21-year-old players and unbelievable talents, and the two will grow together. But as soon as one starts opposing the other, like, if constantly all their mates have to do a different life, you're going to have players choosing between whether they want to be a footballer or they want to be, and yes, I imagine the money is a huge side of it. You're drawn into a contract with clubs and it's big money and expectations. But in my head, I kind of want to see a 19-year-old be a 19-year-old or a 20 be a 20-year-old and manage both things the best they can.
But I get what you're saying totally, but like, I did have a mad focus from such a young age. So I did have that head on my shoulders, that I knew that what was right from wrong. So from 14 to 21, I reckon that was the most dedicated. And my kids, I will instill this in them, that I think that is the most important time of not just a young footballer's life, of anyone's life, because that shapes you. It's like, if you dedicate yourself, when everyone's going to parties, if you go, right, this is what I want to be, this is what I want to do, and you go for that, and like, go, right, it doesn't matter what you want to be. If you want to be an actor, a singer, a frigging accountant, if you dedicate those years and go, everyone's going out, I'm going to do this, like, you will be better off at like that 30, sort of 25, 30, 40 age, 1,000,000%. Like, I dedicate myself to football. Like, my dad was amazing to me, and he said to me, if you do that, you won't be a footballer. And every time that I wanted to go to a party, or I wanted to have a drink, or I wanted to
give us like an example. So you mean, as a, like, because this is obviously the lesson that you've taken from your dad, right?
Yeah.
But would your mates, you're still best mates with a lot of your
still
best
now,
mates still,
but
they were all going out.
Say if they were going to a party on
and
Friday
would you
night,
kick off?
I'll be like, Dad, like, everyone's going to a party, and he'd go, like, you can go. He would always say, it's not my decision. You can go, no worries. But I doubt you'll make it as a footballer. Or what's your manager going to think of that? And I'll go, actually, like, and it'd just play with me, and I'd go, and I'd make my own decision, which is what was amazing. Like, he would let me make my own decision, but I would always choose not to. And I would always choose football. And like, that period of between 14 to sort of 21, where I did dedicate myself. And listen, I had fun along the way, but I knew when to like cut it off. So I'd go to a party and I'd leave at 9:30, and like, everyone else would go, and I'd hear about it the next day, and I'd go, yeah, I missed out, but I've got a goal, and my goal is to do this. And we laugh and joke about stuff now, but like, that period of my life was so dedicated to my profession and being a footballer.
Oh, I think this is really interesting, especially as a dad as well, in kind of what you're meant to be instilling, or not meant to be instilling, but what you could be instilling in your kids to potentially go on and get to where you are in the game.
And also young players, like, I don't know if they want to get in touch with us, it's that petercrouchpodcast.com. Get in touch. Like, if you've got any questions for me, or if you want to get in touch, if you're a father that wants to get in touch, then please do.
Yeah, let's do that. And maybe we can make a good episode out of this. I think it could be a goer. What should we go for next in your midfield?
I can't do a midfield without putting Steven Gerrard in it. We've talked about him many a time on this pod. Like, I think he's the best player that I've played with. He's everything that a footballer should be. And I mean, like, I just feel like, as central midfield, even if you're a top player in an England dressing room, you'd still sort of have that kind of like respect. And also, playing for like a club like Liverpool, and being like that, in that such high regard at such a top club, it's difficult to argue with with that.
I think one of the interesting things for me, I used to hate him because I'm a Manchester United fan. He was one of those players that would always perform against Manchester United. He'd always score goals. He'd always make things happen against my football team. Amazing to watch. But Crouchy, we spoke about Derry's midfielder. Now he's a coach. Gerrard. Now he's a manager. What's that? Why is it midfielders that seem to be the ones that are coming through as the coaches?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I just think it's the character. Like, you could see it. Like, Scott Parker as well. Like you mentioned, like the ones that I played with. Like you knew Stevie would be a manager. Like, he lives and breathes it. And not that I don't, but like I don't know. It's a different mentality. Like, to go from that intense as a footballer and then go straight into management, it takes a certain person. Like I did want to spend time with my family. I wanted to have a little break. I wanted to try other things, like football was my life, my whole life. But then when I retired at 38, I thought, you know what, like, let's try something different.
Is it statistically, are there more managers and coaches that come from midfield than any other?
So if we think of the top ones, right? Guardiola, central midfielder. Carlo Ancelotti, central midfielder. Then you've got Jurgen Klopp, played centre half. I think that's part of it. But I also, the one thing that I think about it with a midfielder is a midfielder can usually play left back, right back, centre back, defensive midfield, central midfield, attacking midfield, probably could play up front, probably could play on either wing. Their understanding of the whole game because of the position and what it entails.
Like centre forwards, strikers, like not so much.
Goalkeepers?
Yeah.
Managers, are they? All goalkeepers, yeah.
No, there's obviously, look,
that's obvious. So that was,
I knew it. I knew you'd nibble. For one, he hates any notion that centre forwards and goalkeepers can be compared to anyway.
That was
secondly,
obvious. What I'm saying is
the utter disgust at the thought of a goalkeeper being in charge of a football team.
Name me one.
Nuno Espirito Santo as the Premier League one.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a job anymore, though.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest. Like, goalkeeping managers are the new Carls.
Maybe.
Let's be honest.
I like some Google.
If you know one, please get in touch. You laughed at me for saying, and like, but they aren't managers. It's not football, is it? They're playing.
Well, it is.
Will there be more? Because we're getting ball-playing goalkeepers that do more than the old school goal. Like Manuel Neuer, because he can basically play in central midfield.
Oliver Kahn. Obviously, like, is in charge of Bayern Munich. Obviously, got a high-powered job. Dino Zoff was a top manager, right?
Yes.
Okay, Dino Zoff won.
There'll be a day, because science evolves, that a baby will be born and the midwife will look at it and go, "Oh, look, you've got a goalkeeper." You'll be there next to wife's just given birth. You'll be like, "What?" At first, is baby okay? Baby's okay. What is it? It's a false 9. I think we're having this discussion now, predicting that, will there be goalkeepers that can one day manage? And, that's the question we're asking on this podcast. Feed in. Let us know.
My first thought would be no.
No.
But please feed in.
Should we move on to the next midfielder?
Well, that's Lee Hendry, Dave. Really talented player. I actually remember watching him play. Me and my dad went to Wembley to watch the old Wembley, to watch his England debuts. Not necessarily to see Lee Hendry play, but we went to watch England.
That's quite a tribute.
Anyone who was there that day, right, the old Wembley, he did this Cruyff, and I was like, wow, like, imagine coming on in the debut, like, it seems so miles away for me, like, to see him do that. He was so comfortable in possession, like, really good player, and he was a bit of a legend at Aston Villa. Obviously, local boy, Bromley. I think I was 21 when I signed for Villa. Lee Hendry sort of took me under his wing, looked after me. Again, a bit like Sean Derry in some ways, like Henders, Gareth Barry, J. Lloyd Samuel, Darius Vassell was sort of like around my age. There was a lot of older players. So, like, imagine walking to a dressing room with like Paul Merson, Olaf Melberg, Ronnie Johnson, Peter Schmeichel, Dion Dublin, Ian Taylor. And my mates from London were like hammering me because I'd go out with them a lot and I'd met their friends and I'd come back to London and I got like a Brummie twang a little bit. And bizarrely, I ended up talking. I just loved the lads so much and like we had such a good time.
In terms of like Gareth Barry and Lee Hendry, they had very different careers in a sense. Obviously, Barry went on to make the record appearances in the Premier League. What was different about them?
We liked to go out every now and then in Birmingham, and Henders was very, very loud. I mean, I couldn't get away with anything, and neither could he. Everyone in Birmingham knew he was, and everyone in Birmingham couldn't miss me. Gareth had this amazing ability to blend in I remember getting called to Graham Taylor's office once, and he said, "Why can't you be more like Gareth?" Me and Henders, and I felt like saying he was with us. He's had the most appearances of any player in the Premier League of all time. I reckon if he walked down the road, Lee Hendry would get recognised more.
Isn't that amazing? And Paul Graham Taylor, I love the idea that you boys would be there, hopefully both of you together as well, getting bollocked, saying you need to be more like Gareth, and Gareth's there just...
Right, so we've got Sean Derry, we've got Gerrard, we've got Lee Hendry. Who's next?
I'm going for Luka Modric, Dave. It's pretty self-explanatory, but also... we all know he's won the Ballon d'Or, for God's sake. I mean, what a player. I don't even have to speak about his, technical ability, but also what an amazing person. Like him, Luka, Crouchy, the Croatian Mafia. Absolutely loved them. Like, honestly, like we just loved them as people. Like they I don't know, they were quite English in many ways. Just great in the dressing room. And Luka was the same. I saw him at the Champions League final, and he was just the same person, and he's gone on to win everything. And
it's hard not to love him.
Have you seen the clip of after, I think it was the Champions League semi from last season, where he's going celebrating with everyone in the dressing room, and he spends, he goes around the whole dressing room, all the players, and then he spends time with like the staff in the background, like the coaches. I think it's those types of things as a fan that I'm like, he's a great person.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Dave. Like you just nailed it. Like you can see it a mile off. Everyone loves him. So I remember being injured once and being on the sideline, Luke and Harry saying like, look at Modric, like, and they just watch it. Like you just love watching him. It was. I don't think I ever saw him give the ball away in training. It was just. I'm not even joking. Like we'd play small-sided like boxes, where you just can't get out of situations, and he would manage to wriggle out of these situations and keep the ball. It was just beautiful to watch. He used to just run games, like we just play it to him. Like I told the story before about Wilson Palacios. It was like, Wilson, go and hunt the ball, win it back. That's what Harry used to say to him. Win it back. I don't care if Luka Modric is there.
Give it to Modric.
Like, I'm talking a centimetre away. You give it to him, and that made Wilson a better player because he knew his role, and then Modric's role was to dictate the game. So for me personally, he wasn't like, he wouldn't give me loads of assists, but he would just run the game, and we'd be more in control of every single game because Luke was there.
From Palacios to Casemiro, Real Madrid, similar role: win the ball back, give it to Modric or Kroos. Why has Luka Modric had such a long career at the top level? After the three Champions League trophies, you're thinking that's it, and now he's just won it again. Why?
Because he doesn't rely on any other attribute other than his brain and his technique. Like lots of players can blow out when they've got all this pace, this strength, this every single thing. Like even when he was a 19-year-old player, he was never going to burst past people. He was always a conductor of the orchestra. He never really, he was never going down the wing, or he never. All his attributes are going to be with him till he's 50, 60 years old. He could play in the senior league, and he's still going to be Luka Modric, who dictates the whole game.
With the Croatian lads, you mentioned the Croatian Mafia. Was it all technique with those lads?
Oh, mate, I mean, Crouchy was unbelievable player, great finisher. Like I remember, like in training.
Where have they got that from then? What's happened there?
Well, I think I've got two of the best there. Like Crouchy was very underrated as a player. Like anyone who's played with Nico Crouchy will tell you how good he was. And Modric the same. Sure, Luka, he was a good, like solid defender, but Luka's relationship with Luka was amazing. They were so tight. We got to the stage where we'd all have our own rooms, and they would always room together, always. Like that didn't happen anymore. But they would still,
even when you were on your own?
Yeah, we'd all have our own rooms now. Like that went out in a sort of.
That's a funny one, isn't it?
Yeah, but even if they had a double bed, they'd still be in it together.
Yeah, but why? I know that's lovely. Obviously, it's great that they're so tight like that, but that's a funny one to keep going when all your other teammates are like, you can have your own room.
Yeah,
they're like, no, we'll stay together.
No, they didn't want to. They were so tight. But I loved that about them. Like they all sort of like knocked about together. But everyone I've met, like Bilic, the same, Robert Prosinecki, like all the Croatian players that I played with, like they all had this sense of sort of togetherness that I quite liked, and I always got on great with them.
It's amazing. It's like an deck, isn't it? You sort of need both of them together. It's sort of, you imagine them still sharing a room, don't you? You can't imagine them in separate. Should we get one more name in there? I know there's a couple on the list that are in front of me here that you've sort of sent ahead. who do you want to concentrate on?
Well, it's a difficult one for me, this, because I've got to pick one name because I'm conscious of time. But
It's gone on again.
It's
this
going
episode,
on,
hasn't
really
it?
going on. Yeah, I'm banging
I
on.
think we're all enjoying it. I hope.
Sensational.
But the honourable mention to Didier Mann, because what a man. One of the finest human beings I've ever come across in my life. He's the biggest German scouser you'll ever meet in your life. But I've gone for Robert Prosinecki.
Have you?
Yes, because the reason behind this was because I was a young player, 19, as we mentioned, Port Solent, with Courtney Pitt and Sean Derry, and all of a sudden, Robert Prosinecki rolls into Portsmouth. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Croatia, legend. Being a young sort of budding footballer, seeing someone like that walk through the door, all of a sudden you're like, wow.
Did he have that presence as well?
My God, I mean, what a player he was. And then, you roll in and he's got a red Marlboro in his mouth. And that took me aback. And from then on, I'd never seen anyone smoke so much in my life, and need it at half time. So like games, he would go into the. I remember Graham Ricks at first, and then Harry doing team talks and talking to Robert, and then he'd sort of like lean through from the showers with a red Marlboro.
Harry said nothing.
No one. Everyone just accepted it was Robert Prosinecki, and he'd smoke at half time.
And did anyone try and copy that and then
no
shout it down? Or was he the only one smoking in the showers?
If all of a sudden, like Harry's doing a team talk, we're all going, all right,
But that's mad then, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's Robert Prosinecki. I think you could. I don't know. It was dealt with anyway. It probably shouldn't have been, but that's how it was. What a player! Couldn't run. Couldn't move much, but he had this trick of like he'd roll his foot over the ball, and like everyone knew it was coming, but you just couldn't. Everyone flinched. It didn't matter who you got, and he'd be gone. He'd just go to shoot and roll his foot over the ball. And then he used to do this chop, and he kept chopping, and like people would always go for it, and then he'd just put the ball on a sixpence. And I remember scoring I think it was 19 goals that year, and most of them were from him. He'd get inside and he'd just pinpoint, put these crosses in, and no weirport. He just picked me out every single time, and every pass he played, right and left foot, was genius. And you speak to anyone at Fratton Park or anyone who was a Portsmouth fan at that time, and they tell you about Prosinecki. It was just a pleasure to have played with him.
So I was doing a bit of research on Prosinecki, a little excerpt from his Wikipedia page. His biggest weakness as a footballer was his proneness to muscular injuries, his poor defensive work rate, his inconsistencies, and his motivation, his addiction to tobacco. Sound about right?
Well, I think that's just summed him up, isn't it? I think I've explained him in a way. I didn't know that, Dave, but like that, his inconsistency, his work rate, his motivation, and his addiction to tobacco.
But his poor defensive work rate was someone else's job. Do you know what I mean? He was
Exactly
a star.
right.
It's that's not his problem.
That's exactly the way he approached it. Exactly right.
I think we missed it. On that little insert, we need to put in Butter Maverick. I think we need to give him the positive of that.
Dave is a genius, mate, honestly.
Right, Crouch, we've done the midfield. It's time for that forward line. There's some good players in here.
Yeah, there is. I mean, listen, I love a forward. And I think the first one I'm going to go for is Fowler. Played with him, obviously came back. It wasn't real peak Fowler like early Liverpool days. He'd been around and then he'd come back to Liverpool when I played with him. But again, I've gone for a top fella. I roomed with him quite a bit and we had such a laugh. And for me, growing up and watching Robbie Fowler, just loved him, absolutely loved his goals and the way he sort of carried himself, and he looked like he had a laugh, and I loved that about him.
There was that time as well. Was he hidden up at the top, or was that you?
When he hid in the wardrobe,
that was
single one of the most funniest things I've ever seen in my life. When it was all going off on this trip, the Bellamy Lisa situation happened in Portugal, and Dudek was in a bit of trouble. Sammy Hoopier threw up, and there was a lot going on that night. And Rafa come out in his pajamas, and just reminiscing of when Fowler was in that cupboard above his head. It feels like an out-of-body experience now when I think back to that. Being young and watching Robbie Fowler and seeing him in that wardrobe, and thinking, how have I got myself in this situation? I'm playing for Liverpool. The manager's barking at me where's Robbie? And I could see him in the cupboard above his head. One of the finest things I've ever seen.
Was he doing the finger on the mouth? He wasn't, was he?
He's going. I was going. I'm trying my best to hold my laugh in and just get through it. Like, he could have just been in bed and they would have moved on to the next room. But he wasn't. But that was Robbie, and that was great about him.
From looking at Robbie from a stats perspective, genuinely blew my mind.
Yeah, really.
Didn't realise he was that good a player, straight up. So he's the only player in the Premier League to score over 100 goals with his left foot. He's the only player to score 4+ goals with his left foot in a single game. He's done that twice.
Wow.
Salah, right now, is on 99.
Really?
Wow.
But that's the levels.
I mean, you're a bit younger than me. He was unbelievable. When he burst on the scene at 18, you've seen nothing like it. Seen no finishing like it. It was phenomenal.
Right, let's go for another forward. Fowler to... Who we going next?
Raphael van der Vaart, Chris. Me and him just struck up an amazing relationship at Tottenham. The minute he came in, the first training session we connected, we were up front together, and like everything I was doing, he was around, he was on my wavelength. We just had an amazing understanding. And I'm not saying it's because I just think he was such an intelligent footballer. He was just knew where to be. He was just good on the ball. He knew when to go wide. He knew when to get around me. He knew if something was coming in, something might drop. He could score goals. He would create. We just got on great, and we got on great off the field as well.
I went back to the 2010-11 Premier League season because that's the type of fun that I get up to. Crouchy, you assisted Raphael van der Vaart 5 times in the Premier League that season. No assister to goal scorer combination managed more goals
in that season.
With 5.
With 5, it's a more rare thing than you think.
These are the numbers we were talking in my day.
A goal,
Chris,
another striker.
Chris, these are the numbers we were talking in my day. Electric.
No, but
I'm sorry, man. I don't want to. It's just I know a lot of these stats are good and a lot of these stats, but it's like, what do you mean? So Crouchy assisted 5 times,
yes,
and that was a record.
That was the highest that season. He assisted Raphael van der Vaart 5 times, and it's that combination of Crouchy to Raphael van der Vaart. The same season, I think they had a Theo Walcott to Van Persie type combination. I think we've been broken a bit from that statistical point from Kane and Son.
Yeah,
that's kind of ruined our minds in that sense because those two.
What was theirs for a season?
So they broke the Shearer Sutton record of 13, literally 2 years ago. So they were 14.
Pissed on that parade, didn't they?
But at the same time, that's like a real rarity. So 5 is big.
We got a load in the Champions League. That's not in those stats. That's what that was. We got over 13, but it was all in the Champions League.
What about the other way around? How much did he help Crouchy?
Not a single goal in the Premier League.
See?
That surprised me, but there was definitely...
you were a better friend.
There was some in the Champions League, I think. I remember him setting me up a few times in the Champions League. Fuck your stats, Dave, anyway.
The stats, I think your stats sometimes don't match up with the memories.
I'm breaking the memories.
I really enjoyed playing with him. Let's put it that way. And it was a match made in heaven.
We've got a couple of spots left, Crouchy, in the forward line. Who are we going with?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads to choose from. You know, it's difficult. But Torres was on fire at Liverpool when I played with him. Absolutely loved him. Apart from when I had to move on because of him. Defoe is a player I'm going to have in my squad because the most goal hungry man that anyone's ever seen. So if you're struggling for goals near the end, Defoe, another good lad. We got
you're iconic, you two. You've got a very famous sort of thing there, haven't you? You and Defoe.
Yeah, I think that our relationship, I don't think I scored or we scored as a partnership more goals. I don't think I've scored more goals with anyone between us other than me and Defoe. And I'm talking about under 21s as well, England and Tottenham and Portsmouth we played together. So yeah, we go way back. We scored a load of goals together. And Bale. There's another one for you. So Bale is in the squad purely because I saw his transition from sort of boy to man, and I watched him go from a left back struggling to get in the team, potentially going to Nottingham Forest, to then become one of the world's greatest players.
We saw this progress a lot more gradual than you would have. But was there a moment? Or?
There was a couple of things, like Chris. There was like in training, like he was the best player in training every day, and it was like weird. Like, and he'd come to games and he'd be a bit nervy, and he was playing left back, and I always say about it's like playing Cristiano Ronaldo right back. It's like he had no real defensive qualities. But then as soon as he got moved further forward, that was the change, and the confidence grew, and he's quite shy as a lad, you know. So just when his confidence grew, then he came out, and then the real Gareth could come out. And then obviously watching him destroy Maicon home and away, he scored a hat-trick in the San Siro, and then he went back to White Hart Lane and absolutely destroyed one of the best right-backs that we've ever seen. And and then it just kept going. From then on, it just kept, every single week you'd see a new improvement. It was like, right, give Gareth the ball and just let him do his thing. And watching it sort of happen. And then even after I left, he went from like that left wing position to like a free role, like in behind the front. If anyone won the amount of things he's won at Real Madrid, you know, he deserves to be respected. And not only
great
that,
golfing partner for you as well.
Yes,
let's be
that's
real.
another-
Like,
that's
we
another
need to
point.
consider this as part of the squad. There's a good social element to this.
but again, you know, if I've got, I could have nights out with Lee Hendry and Prosinecki and Didier Man, or I could go for a game of golf with Gareth Bale. I mean, there's lots to do.
Have you ran the viewfinder vape idea past Gareth Bale?
He's not a vapor. He doesn't even drink. He doesn't have a beer.
But you don't
So
think he'd be
I don't think he'd be
interested in,
vaping. I think he'd be on board for the range finding aspect.
That's what I meant, the range
But
finder. That's the one I meant.
not the vape aspect. I know this is going to go massive. You know it's going to go. It's a great idea.
What a squad, lads. Unbelievable. That wins the Champions League for me, Crouchy.
From a fan's point of view, I think it's great as well. It's entertaining. It's talented. From a personal playing point of view, you must be loving that.
I'd love to go away in Europe with this squad.
Before we go, though, who's the most parchy out of this squad, Crouchy?
It's not a very parched squad, but if Sean Derry would probably be pretty parched in that scenario.
Well, you said what a sort of consummate professional he is as soon as he's in training ground.
Which is
Match situation.
pretty parchy, isn't it?
This has gone on really late tonight. I'll give you a little insight. Like sometimes we record this podcast and we always sit down, we take a while, don't we? We have a couple of pints, but it's getting towards 11 o'clock.
Well, there was points where I was getting into players and we were just talking about them for so long. And obviously you won't hear probably half of the stuff that we've chatted about. But you know, hopefully you get the best bits. But it's just so interesting and like enjoyable to sort of sit down and dissect people for so long.
Mate, it's great stories. Thank you. I think you can tell from our voice and everything we're saying, we're a couple of pints in now, so we better wrap this up. Go home to our families. Like, believe me, we're going to be in trouble for this recording. It's all good, but it's worth it.
Ab's blowing up my phone here. Where the fuck are you?
It's one of them. It's gone on slightly later, kicking out time in 20 minutes, so we're going to wrap this up. As we said, any questions? I'm probably repeating myself because of the Guinness. That petercrouchpodcast.com. Crouchfest, we do actually need to get our shit together with that one. So any ideas, send them through. And most importantly, help us like shout about it and get out so that everyone that wants to be there can come along and come enjoy it. It's gonna be a great night.
Spot on, Chris. Chumbawamba, everyone.